The Whitepass and Yukon Railroad is an international historic civil engineering landmark, a designation that not every road has earned. The Eiffel Tower, Panama Canal, and the Statue of Liberty have also earned this designation. The railway is known for its tight curves and steep 3.9% grades. It's also been called a railway built of gold. If it wasn't for the Klondike gold rush from 1896 to 1899, the railway probably wouldn't have been built. This is the fascinating story of the Whitepass and Yukon Route Railroad. If you want to learn even more about the railroad than this video, then you can support me on Patreon. If you have the conductor tier, which is $5 a month, you can access exclusive content and get access to my videos 1 week early. If you don't want to pay $5 every month, you can pay $1 a month for a series of benefits that are on screen. To understand the railroad's history, we must briefly talk about the gold rush. Without the gold rush, the railroad wouldn't exist. In August of 1896, Skagway Jim and his family found gold near the Klondike River in Canada's Yukon Territory. His discovery caused a frantic gold rush. Nearby miners infested the Klondike region in search of gold. Almost a year after the news spread to the outside world, a herd of gold seekers brought their supplies and boarded ships in west coast ports such as Seattle. To get to the gold fields, you can either take an all-water route, which was the fastest and the most expensive. Most of St. Peter's chose either the Whitepass or Chilkoot trails. Most St. Peter's would sail up the Inside Passage, then disembarked and hiked over the coast mountain range to the head of the Yukon River, then traveled on a homemade boat for over 500 miles to reach the gold fields. The first year of the gold rush, an estimated 20,000 to 30,000 gold seekers spent an average of 3 months crossing the mountains. Now it's time to get to the beginning of the railroad's history. Two men had the same idea of building a railway over the Whitepass. Their names are Sir Thomas Tancredi, representing investors in London, and Michael J. Henry, an experienced railway contractor. Henry, as I will call him for the rest of the video, was interested in finding new work for his talents. Tancredi had doubts about building a railroad above the coastal mountains. Henry thought otherwise. He bragged, "Give me enough dynamite and steel and I'll build a railroad to hell." By some chance, they met in Skagway, Alaska. They talked the night to dawn. The railroad was going to be built. First, they had to pay George Brackett $11,000, $60,000, and $50,000 in 2 separate payments in April of 1898 for the right-of-way to his road. On May 28, 1898, construction began on the railroad. On April 12, 1898, E.C. Hawkins of Denver arrived in Skagway to take charge of the work. By the 27th of May, construction had begun, with rails being laid in Skagway. In mid-July, the road was delivered a 260 locomotive from a Utah short line. The locomotive was number 2. The railway would be operated as 3 separate entities, as originally organized: the Pacific and Arctic Railway and Navigation Company in Alaska, the British Columbia Yukon Railway in BC, and the British Yukon Railway Company in the Yukon Territory. Throughout the construction, there were more than 1,000 men employed. The figure often reached 1,800 to 2,000. They worked in relays during the summer when daylight was 24/7. The obstacles the builders faced were almost unprecedented. When Hawkins arrived, he saw the mountain rising boldly. There were no surveys conducted due to 30 feet deep snowdrifts, sheer cliffs that rose up hundreds of feet. They also had no rolling stock and a very precious small mountain material to begin work. Hawkins and Henry brought in an army of men from the U.S. commissionary to feed them $200,000 worth of supplies. It was quickly discovered that native timber splintered too easily, so every railroad tie and every bridge timber had to be imported. Ships were sent up the Skagway and started unloading all kinds of construction material. This included tons of dynamite, which was far more effective than black powder used by earlier railroad builders. A total of 450 tons of explosives were required to build the railroad. For the first 20 miles from Skagway, the cost averaged $100,000 per mile, a crap ton of money for that era. For the first 3 miles along the Skagway River was relatively easy. After that easy section, the builders encountered the challenging section near Rocky Point. This would drive up the cost to $125,000 plus per mile. At Porcupine Point, a charge of 2,500 pounds of dynamite was blasted to blast off a large slice off the mountainside. At Tunnel Mountain, workers were forced to lower themselves over a cliff where footing was rare for an eagle. To drill holes in the rock and set explosive charges. A 250-foot-long tunnel had to be drilled on the north side of the chasm. 35 workers would be killed during the railroad's construction. On July 21, 1898, the railroad operated its first train from Skagway to a point 4 miles north of the town. And on August 15th, an inspection train went up to Porcupine Point, where the locomotive drew up the very last rail laid. A party of investors, company officials, and guests roped in on the slides and later detrained at the end to peer over the edge of the stone wall. By August 25th, trains were operating as far as Henry Station. As the rails continued to advance rapidly up the mountain, Railway employed a switchback near milepost 19. The main track wasn't completed to the summit on February 18, 1899. 2 years later, an impressive steel cantilever bridge was built across Dead Horse Gulch, soaring 250 feet above the White Horse Fork, so the switchback was no longer needed. On July 6, 1899, the first train reached Lake Bennet in BC at milepost 41. Up to this point, miners and prospectors had toiled for days to pack their backpacks, now reached by rail in 3 hours. While construction crews battled their way north, laying rail, another crew came from the north. On July 29, 1900, they met in Carcross, where a ceremonial golden spike was driven. The spike was driven by Samuel H. Graves, the president of the railroad. By 1992, the railway suspended operations. In 1988, the railway was reopened as a tourist railroad, beginning excursions from Skagway to Whitepass Summit. The line was later extended to Bennet in the 90s and Carcross in 2007. Thank you for watching this video on the Whitepass and Yukon Route Road. If you enjoy videos like this one, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I'll see you in another video.